Hey Benold Eagles, Miss Barker here. We're going to be taking a look at the distributive property. Notice that we'll be taking our notes on page 15 of the interactive notebook. This is 1.4 distributive property, referring to your textbook with chapter 1 lesson 4. And as we do this, please notice that the very first column is going to be extremely narrow. The second column is going to be very, very wide. So please make sure you reserve plenty of space for all the work that we'll be doing eventually on the second column. Now, if we take a look at this problem number 1, 2 times the sum of 3 and 4. Back with order of operations, we've done this type of problem before. 3 plus 4 is 7, 2 times 7 is 14. But we can do this problem in a second way, and that is, we can say that, well, we're going to take 2 times 3, and then 2 times 4. So if we do the 2 times 3, we will get 6. Notice here for the 2 times 4, that's going to be a positive times a positive, so I'm going to put a plus. And then the 2 times 4 will give me an 8. So 6 plus 8 will give us the exact same answer of 14. So this is the idea of our distributive property, where we can take this number in front and we can multiply it with each and every term inside the parentheses. And we end up with an answer equivalent to if we simply followed the order of operations. Now, as to the thought of, well, why don't I just follow the order of operations? We get into issues on something like number 2. Number 2, we have this 3 in front, but I'm going to multiply it with 4a plus 8b. 4a and 8b, those are unlike terms. I can't combine them. I cannot do anything to put that together. But what I can at least do is I'm going to multiply 3 times 4a, giving me a 12a. And then when we do the 3 times 8b, we think a positive times a positive is a positive, so I get to put a plus. And 3 times 8b will give me a 24b. And that's as far as we can go. That is simplified. These are unlike terms. We have a binomial made up of 2 terms, the 12a, the 24b. That's it. That's as far as we can go. Let's look at another one. Number 3. We'll take 12x plus 3y, and we're going to multiply that with the 5. Now this time I chose to put the 5 in parentheses. We don't always do that. So we would take this 5 times the 12x, giving a 60x. And then we'll take the 5 times the 3y. Well, we're doing a positive times a positive, so we get a plus, and 5 times 3y will give us a 15y. All right, let's take a look at number 4. On this one, let's take the negative 3 times 3x plus 2y minus 2. So that negative 3 in front gets multiplied with each and every term in the parentheses, no matter how many or how few terms that there might be. So negative 3 times 3x, a negative times a positive is a negative, so I get to write a minus, or a negative that is. And 3 times 3x gives me a 9x. On the next one, I have a negative 3 times 2y. We think through a negative times a positive is a negative. Don't bother with a plus a negative. Just write a plain old minus. And 3 times 2y will give me a 6y. And finally, negative 3 times negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive, so we write a plus. 3 times 2 will give us a 6. Let's take a look at number 5. On number 5, we have 7 times the difference of 3w and 5, and then plus 2. So if we distribute, that's 7 times 3w will give us a 7 times 3w will give us a 21w. And then When we do 7 times that negative 5, because yes, minus 5 we think plus a negative. Well, a positive times a negative is a negative, so I get to write a minus. 7 times 5 is 35, and then I'm going to bring down the plus 2. Oh, but if we take a look, 21W, that's the only W we have, so I'm going to write down my 21W. But here I can think negative 35 plus 2 to give me a negative 33. Let's take a look at number 6. On number 6, we will have in parentheses 6n plus g minus 3. And then outside the parentheses, we'll put a 4. So we will do the 4 times 6n. 4 times 6 is 24, so that will be a 24n. And then we'll do the 4 times g. Notice a positive times a positive is positive, so I get to write a plus. 4 times g is 4g. And then finally, we'll do 4 times this negative 3. A negative times a positive is a negative, so I get to write a minus. 3 times 4 is 12. I've got an n, I've got a g, and I've got a constant, so there's no combining that I get to do. All right, on the next one, number 7, let's give ourselves 0.4, and then inside the parentheses, let's do 8a minus 7b. So we'll take the 0.4 times the 8a, a positive times positive is positive. 4 times 8 is 32. We have 1 decimal place in the problem, so 1 decimal place in the answer. So this will give us a 3.2a. And then when we take our 0.4 times our negative 7b, a positive times a negative is a negative, so I get to write a minus. 4 times 7 is 28. I have 1 decimal in the problem, 1 decimal in the answer, so I get a minus 2.8b. And then let's take a look at number 8 and throw in a fraction here. Let's take a 1/4 times 1/2 a plus 3 1/3 b. If we kind of preview this problem, we notice that, hey, I'm going to be taking 1/4 times this mixed number. So let's plan ahead. Let's make this 1/4 times 1/2 a plus, go ahead and make this improper. 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 plus 1 will give us a 10. So that's a 10 over 3, and then times a b. And now we're ready for our regular old multiplication. 1/4 times 1/2 a. 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 2 is 8, so that gives us a 1/8 a. 1/4 times 10 over 3a, so plus. Now you might even choose to do some reducing ahead of time. In this case, these are small enough, I'm just going to multiply straight across. 1 times 10 is 10. 4 times 3 is 12. So I've got a 10 over 12b. One little piece of simplifying is possible. So I'll write the 1/8 a plus 10 over 12 becomes a 5 over 6, and then b. All right, considering how wide these next problems are going to be, even though I have some space on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and begin my second column. So still under the directions of simplify, let's move over to number 9. Again, make sure that you allow as much width for the second column as possible. Okay, so let's give ourselves a 10x, and then in this first parentheses, let's write 3 minus 4y plus 6z. But then, plus, we have 2y, and in parentheses, 3x minus 4. All right, so I have this case, I'll start with just 2 separate times of distributing. So we will do our 10x times 3, our 10x with the 4y, and our 10x with the 6z. So 10x times 3 will give me a 30x. Next, we think a positive times a negative is a negative, so I get to write a minus. 10 times 4 is 40. And the x times y, I just write the xy. And then this positive times positive is positive, so I get to write a plus. 10 times 6 is 60. And the x times z, most I can do is write a xz. Next, we have this 2y times 3x. Well, positive times positive, we get to write a plus. 2 times 3 is 6. When you do this y times x, switch this over to alphabetical order. So let's do xy. And then we have 2y with the negative 4. Positive times a negative is a negative, so I write a minus. 2 times 4 is 8, so that's an 8y. After that, we look to combine any like terms. I've got a 30x. I don't have any other x's, so I bring down my 30x. Maybe a light mark out to say I've used that up. I have an xy here. I have an xy here. I see negative 40 plus 6. Different sign subtract. So that becomes a negative 34 of my xy's. Now done with those terms. I've got an xz, no others, so plus 60xz, and then I'll bring down the minus 8y. So we just distribute, and then we're to the point of all the combining like terms. Let's look at the next one, number 10. We have 6 times the difference of x and y, plus 5 times the sum of x and twice y. So if we distribute, we would have the 6 times x is 6x. For the 6 times y, positive times negative, I write a minus. So 6 times y, I write 6y. 5 times x, positive times positive, so I write a plus, 5x. 5 times the 2y, a positive times positive, I write a plus. 5 times 2 is 10. And I've just got my y. Then we do whatever combining we have. Got some x's here. 6x plus 5x is 11x. And then I have a negative 6y plus 10y. That will give me a plus 4y. Let's take a look at number 11. On this one, we have a 5, and then in parentheses, let's do q squared minus r plus 8 times a 3q plus a 2r. Okay, the 5 times the q squared, we'd get a 5q squared. 5 times this r, a positive times a negative, I write a minus. 5 times r is a 5r. Let's look at the 8. 8 times the 3q, positive times positive, I write a plus. 8 times 3q would be a 24q. 8 times 2r, a positive times a positive, I write a plus. 8 times 2r, we get a 16r. So now if we start combining what we have, the 5q squared, I can just bring that down because we don't have any other q squares. Yes, this is q squared and this is q. Those are not like terms. So I've used up the 5q squared. This 24q, I'm just going to bring it straight down. And then this negative 5r plus 16r, if we put that together, that would be 11r. So please, please, please notice that if you have different exponents, then you do not have like terms. Let's take a look at number 12. On number 12, we have 5 minus 6, and then in parentheses, put 2x minus 3, close parentheses, minus 2x. So if we work through that, the 5 has nothing to do with any parentheses, just bring it down. Then negative 6 with the 2x, we write a minus 12x. Negative 6 with the negative 3, negative with negative, we write a plus 18, and then bring down your minus 2x. Then we look for whatever we can combine. Let's combine our x's first. Negative 12x minus 2x will give us a negative 14x. 5 plus 18 will give us a negative 23. And finally, I know that this was a little bit of a jump, but I wanted to make sure to give you 2 last problems. So make sure that you pause the video to write these down. Notice specifically on this one. Yes, you handle the numerator exactly as I've been showing you in everything, but then the 15x over 15, we end up with an x. This 30 plus 30 giving you a 60. If you do 60 over 15, you end up with a 4. Then make sure you take a look